Hola, hola, and welcome to Cultura Cash. This is your host, Gigi. I'm a influencer, financial educator, speaker, and author of the award-winning book, Cultura Cash. And today I am joined by a good friend of mine. She is a speaker, ERG coach, and best-selling author of Calladita No More, Hady Mendez. Welcome to the pod.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. I recently started having guests on the pod, and it's been so much fun because otherwise it's just like solo ramblings by me. And those are fun too,
Yeah.
but just good to kind of mix it up. You have so much wisdom, so much knowledge to share. So I'm so happy to have you on the show. Today's topic is going to be when keeping it real bites back, specifically in corporate settings. And really, this is a continuation of a conversation I heard you have. Do you remember who I said I was listening to? And you were doing an interview. I forget with who, with somebody.
Yes. I think it was Victoria Jennifer. Was it the podcast where I was talking about how I haven't dated in 10 years?
No, it wasn't that. No, it was because you've been on a podcast tour, right? Promoting the book. So I was
Yeah.
listening to one of your interviews, and I remember you just saying, talking about how this topic, and I'm like, ooh, let's talk about that more. So,
Okay, cool.
we'll dive back into that. But first, I want to do a quick check in with you. For people who aren't familiar with your work, we did do an IG live that people can rewatch when your book launched almost 2 months ago. So people are welcome to check that out on Instagram Live and see the main takeaways of the book, what inspired you to write the book. This interview is going to be, again, a little different direction, but that one is like a 30-minute replay that you can watch. But now that it's been almost 2 months since your book baby has been into the world, I just wanted to check in with you, author to author. How is life? How are you doing? How are you feeling? Let me know.
Okay. So I'll start with the beginning. It's like everything leading up to launch day, like it's so exciting and there's so much momentum and like it's like go, 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 go. And I feel I couldn't help but feel a little bit of not a letdown, that's probably too strong of a word, but there's like a little bit of like, the air is out of the balloon and you're like, okay, now what? Like what just happened? And like, am I done? Like whoever both wrote the book, bought the book, or are more people going to buy it? And do I still need to keep talking about it? And I think there was a little bit like I was not prepared for, like, this is an extended conversation. This is an extended marketing opportunity. And it's not just done like it's almost like the equivalent of like the pub date is the wedding day, but then you have the marriage. And it's like,
Yes.
the marriage, you got to take care of that marriage. You got to, nurture it, feed it, make sure that it's staying strong. And so, yeah, so that's kind of, I think that was a little bit of a surprise for me, and an unexpected surprise.
Like post
But other than,
publishing blues, it sounds like.
yeah, it's like
Mhm.
postpartum blues, but post
Yeah.
publishing. Yes, that's exactly right. And but I would say aside from that, books have been selling. I have 4 formats, and the audiobook has been doing really well.
Oh, good.
I've been consistently in the top 50 for Hispanic and Latin biographies on Amazon, so that's pretty cool.
Amazing.
Um, I have a Actually, so I have a couple of like virtual events happening this year. I have an in-person event at a local library, and then I have some virtual stuff coming up. And then next year, this just is like right in the process of I'm locking it down. So it's like 99% done. But I'm going to be in Chicago, so I'm going to be in your former hometown, or I guess
Yeah.
last place you lived.
My
I'm
former
going to be in
base.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to be in Chicago next year, so I'm very excited about that. My nephew slash godson is studying in Chicago right now, and I really wanted to do something while he was there. So I haven't even told him yet, but
Do you
I'm
have a
squaring down.
date yet? Like a kind of something
Yeah, it's
just to
going to be
mark the calendars?
the first Sunday in May.
Okay, perfect.
And I
Awesome.
already have an idea who my conversation partner is going to be, but I haven't asked you yet. Like literally, there's just I'm still finalizing the details, but it's all going to
Yeah, it's
come
still in the
together, I think.
works.
So I'm excited. Yeah,
That's exciting. That's exciting. And yeah, Chicago is just such a great place to have
yeah. The
conversations
Latino
around.
community is mad active there. Like I
Hmm.
always thought, like New York is where it's at, or Miami is where it's at, and I'm starting to realize Chicago is where it's at.
Yeah, the community in Chicago is unmatched. I mean, I've never lived in New York City, but from what I understand, yes, of course, there's the bubble to be, very involved in the community. But I also know that living in New York is expensive, so people kind of have to work and grind to make it. The majority of people, but yeah, the community in Chicago is unmatched. So big love to Chicago
Yeah,
from
I
us.
can't wait to be there. I'm excited, and I hope people come, and I hope that, I'm excited to keep the conversation going. Like, I
Yeah.
think now I'm in the right mind space for that. Like before I was like, what? I got to keep talking about this for like forever, pretty much is what it amounts to. But for as long as I want to, I guess, and I
Well,
want to
when
sell books.
I did your IG live, you hadn't even done a book tour stop yet. So now you've
Yeah.
done a couple under your belt. What have those been like, and what's it been like to meet your readers in real life?
It's been really nice, and it's still like it's so weird for people to be like, I loved your book, and it was so, like they act like they know me, but like I don't know them. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, nice to meet you. Like, they're like, and that part when you talked about your mother or you talked about your sister or whatever, and I'm like, okay, but I don't know you. So it is a little weird, but it's amazing for like the vast majority of the people have said the following. I felt like you were talking to me, and I felt like it was like a big sister or like an amiga or like a mentor or something. And if you look back and from, because we both went through Stacy's coaching course, or that um what do you call it? I don't know if you went through a course, because you were one-on-one and I was in a course, but her like format, I guess the methodology that she uses, there's this concept, this the book concept, and it's like you're writing like, who's the book
Who
for,
it's for,
who's your
huh?
primary reader, what do you want them to feel? And I'm like, verbatim they are saying what I wrote in there, and I'm like, that
Wow.
shit is wild. That is wild
Oh.
and crazy and amazing.
That's beautiful. And yeah, I remember doing that homework with Stacy in the beginning and being like, oh, like why can't I just get straight to the writing? But then you see, right, that there's like a method to the madness. And
Yes,
uh
agreed.
yeah, that always kind of anchors you to who you're writing for. When you're starting to use jargon or starting to get frustrated, it's like, remember who this is for, right? This isn't for your ego, it's for that younger version of you that needed this information. So I'm so happy
Yeah,
that you're on the road and getting to meet these people in real life and soon in
it's been fun.
Chicago. Yeah, good. So let's talk about moments where you realize that your voice made people feel uncomfortable. I know you had, how long were you in corporate before you did entrepreneurship?
Oh my goodness, like over 25 years.
Yes, so that's a lot of experience. So can you tell us about a moment where this happened, what that looked like, what that felt like?
The one that come up for me the most, and that really used to like get under my skin, was when I was asked to be part of a panel. And usually these were at conferences or external venues. And then, the communications team, PR team, whatever team, was coordinating with me. They're like, and could you just like write your bullet points or comments first so we could vet them or we could look through them? And I'm like, why you got to be policing me? Like,
Yeah.
and then inevitably I would get back things like, hey, we want this to sound a little bit more polished. We want to
What
keep the tone
industry
more
were you in? Because
professional.
sometimes it is industry specific.
I was in tech and financial services.
Okay.
So yeah, both pretty formal. Well, especially financial services is very
Right.
formal.
Right.
I guess tech depends on the space you're in, but my clients were, always, it was very, yeah, I guess they were very formal settings. But I mean, these conferences was like Lean in Latinas, or, Latinas in tech, or Tequeria, or, the Shep. And so, but it was always like, don't make it too personal. Let's keep it the tone professional. Let's take let's make it less emotional. And it was like, but that's how I am. Like, why are you not going to let me just be who I am? The truth is that like 99% of the time, I just said what I wanted to say anyway, regardless of the instruction I got. I kept it in mind. It's not like I was like disregarding it completely, but I
Hmm.
was like, I don't think this is being emotional. This is being authentic. And I think this is going to resonate with the audience. And sure enough, my talks were always very popular. And it was because I kept it real. I kept it 100%. And people were like, wow, like people talk like that in corporate, people act like that in corporate. Like I didn't know that that was acceptable or okay. So, in the end, I followed like my heart, and I feel like it really connected with the audience, and that was the whole point. So people did want to come work where I worked because of, I kept it 100%, and they were like, oh, like there's people like that too.
So was it like at recruiting events that you would do the panels, or what kind of setting was it in? You
Yeah,
said,
those are always whenever you're speaking in a panel, it's always like a recruiting opportunity, right? Because if like I'm going to
oh,
Latinas, let's say I'm going to Latinas in tech,
mm-hmm,
even if it's not a recruiting event, people are
mm-hmm,
like, yo, like I want to go work there
mm-hmm,
because look at her. She's like a VP or she's a
mm-hmm,
director. She's got
mm-hmm.
responsibilities. She's leading a team. And she's like herself. She's being totally authentic. Like, what's not to love about that? Like, I want to go work there. She's part of the ERG. She, like the DEI is taken seriously there. So, like, I would
Yeah.
talk about those things. And inevitably, it would like get people to be like, oh, I want to work there. So, even if it wasn't quote unquote a recruiting event, it's always like recruiting because you're representing the company and
Right.
what, the culture.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you were able to be yourself in those settings, because for sure, otherwise, like, you can't connect with corporate. Like, we're people. So that's too bad that
Yeah,
it didn't.
it's the representation thing that you
Yeah.
can't be what you can't see. So I was there to show them that they can not only be a Latina or a woman of color in one of these companies, but that they can be authentically themselves in those companies. And I think that is a big difference. It's not just like you go and you assimilate and change your name and now I'm got some other name and I'm like completely integrated into, the culture of the company, but more like you could still be true to yourself and be there. And that I think is an important message, especially for younger people, because younger people ain't trying to like blend in. They're trying to just be themselves. They're trying
Yeah.
to like remain true to who they are and contribute in a meaningful way. And I think I was letting them know, like, yeah, you can do that. It's possible.
Do you happen to remember, like, let's say they did have some red lines on, no, we don't want you to saying this. What do you remember specifically? What were those things that they rather be like, don't mention this, or this is too specific for the public?
I don't remember, but I would venture to say it would be like, let's say I started a sentence with, as a Latina and woman of color, and they're like,
Okay.
maybe not. You don't have
As
to say, you
okay.
just say like, oh, this, just say it.
As an
You don't have
employee at X, Y, and Z.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't think, generally speaking, that in corporate it's very safe or welcoming to talk about race or gender in a conversation that is not specifically about DEI. Like if we're talking
Hmm.
about DEI, fine, talk about it. But if we're not in that context, I don't want to say frowned upon, but it's like people don't really like it because they're like, oh, there she goes. Now she's talking about that thing again. And now, and I think a lot of people feel like it's not really a thing. They're like, that's just a thing. That's your opinion and that's your, what you think. But we don't agree with that. We don't think that you didn't get a fair shake because you're a Latina and a woman. We just think like maybe you're not professional enough or you're not polished enough or you don't have the skill set or something, like in their opinion, that's not really what holds me back. Whereas we know, and there's evidence and numbers to show that, you know, we don't get promoted at the same pace as our peers. We don't have the same representation in senior levels. We get a lot of feedback that's very vague and is not helpful. And so we're stuck. Like we don't get to the more senior levels because we're not getting mentored and coached in the same ways. So I do feel like there's evidence that shows that we do have a different experience, but I think a lot of people reject that or they don't accept it.
Hmm. Hmm. Can you share with us some ways that through your corporate life you were either felt or straight up told to shrink or self-censor your Latinidad or your womanhood? And what survival tactics did you have to learn
Yeah.
to get through this?
I don't think I was ever told to shrink or censor like my Latinidad or my womanhood. Not in that way. But I do feel like, as an example, I didn't always, we were told like, this is a safe space. We're having an open conversation about a thing, whether it's addressing a customer thing or a product thing or something related to sales or marketing or whatever the case might be. But I noticed how people were treated So then you assess at that point and you're like, is it really safe to ask a question in this environment? Is it safe to contribute something that I am not 100% sure about? If I'm not 100% sure but I have a feeling about something, is it safe to say it? Because, or otherwise am I going to get like, like, yeah, we're keep it moving, like that's not a thing. Let's go to something else. So I feel like for me, I felt like I had to be 100% certain, if not 110% certain, to say something, to feel safe to speak up in a meeting where I know factually that my peers did not. They just said whatever they wanted to say, and people were like, "Oh, how interesting," or like they were like, "I'm sure of this," and they were not sure because it was wrong. It was bad information that they were sharing, and they still felt very confident and safe to say it. And so, but you notice how people get treated, and so I did notice that. And like I said, I never really felt safe to talk about race or gender outside of the context of DEI. Like I just felt like people thought that was considered like a distraction, or maybe me being too emotional or too sensitive. And I think the other thing that I remember, like if I think about now, like survival tactics, to your second question, I think I definitely edited myself. So I would like tone it down, so to speak. We've all used that term, tone it down. I stuck to, I didn't bring up hard things. So I stuck to like easy things that everybody was comfortable with. I would not feel safe or comfortable talking about something hard and knowing that it would be received in the way that it was intended, and say, well, and that changed over time, just so you know. So like I remember there was a point in my career where I was at a team meeting and I noticed that it was like they were announcing all the new account executives. And for people who are not familiar with tech sales teams, account executives usually are white men, and then the people who support them are other, like as for example, as me, as a Latina woman of color, I was a customer success manager. But it would be very unlikely that you would find me in an account exec role. Like, that there was never anything that prohibited it, but it was not likely. And I remember bringing that up to my senior leader and saying, you're always shining the light on account executives. They're always the one telling the customer stories. They're always talking about wins, but there are other people on those teams that are contributing to those wins, and we never get an opportunity, to say how we contributed. And believe it or not, this was a white senior leader, and he said, "You're right. We're going to change that." And then, like in a future meeting, we ended up having like one of my customers come, and he's like, "You're going to interview the customer. I want you to do that." And there were other ways that he brought me in, but like he listened to me. But that, like I said, I was afraid to take that risk for a long time, but eventually I was like, the feeling of not doing it and having to live with it outweighed me like, taking the gamble and say, I'm going to say something, even if he spanks me, even, like meaning like he says like, no, that's not true. Or even if he says, poo-poos me and says, no, I think that's in your head, Hady, because I've had that feeling before. I said, I'm going to say it because it bothers me so much to have to live with the reality of like all these account executives always getting the glory and everybody else just kind of sitting around waiting for to get a little love and appreciation. So yeah, I got brave over time, and I feel like that's what I think everybody probably deals with. Is like you deal with it and you're like, okay, this is what I, if I'm going to be in corporate, this is what it's going to be like. And then I think over time you're like, but does it really have to be this way? Or can I be a catalyst for change? Or can I, create a different reality for myself and for the people that come after me? And I feel like, those of us that it bothers us enough, we're going to do something about it. And that's what I did.
That's such an awesome example. And I love that your boss heard you and made change.
Yep.
It also makes me think about, who are these losers, these account executives that are just like taking all the credit, knowing that their team is supporting them and not sharing that spotlight with them, right? I just think it shows poor leadership skills. I can't imagine.
Sometimes they did, but the thing, I don't even blame them, because it was like that role was just considered like the quarterback. That's what they called it, because it's everything's got to be in bro terms. So it's like the AE is the quarterback, and then we're all like supporting players type of thing. But I don't blame them, because I feel like a lot of the people I worked with, I really liked and respected and enjoyed working with. But I do feel like they were elevated and they were like, okay, like sure, Yeah, I'm the quarterback, so I'll go ahead and take the credit. But I remember there was an opportunity. There was one customer that was like the biggest customer the company I worked at had. And it was such a big customer that we were doing a video for like an upcoming customer conference to talk about like what it was like to work with them. And they picked me to represent my part of the business instead of the account executive. And I being who I am, the kind of person that I am, I went to the account executive and I was like, "Hey, they picked me, but like I want you to make sure, I want us to come up with what I'm going to say and I want it to be representative of." He's like, "You got this. You're awesome. You led this. You were so important, an important part of this team. Like I trust you completely and I'm so happy that you're getting, to be front and center because you deserve to be." Like he was like, so like I said, I don't blame them because I feel like many of them, they did acknowledge it, but it was just like the company and the culture just set it up so like they were always like put on a pedestal and the rest of us were like chopped liver.
Well, now hearing that completely makes me understand why you created, right, your LinkedIn series Latinas Front and Center, because you
Yes.
live through like Latinas being in the shadow, women of color being in the shadow, and you're like, let me
Yes.
amplify these women and their stories on LinkedIn. Do you still
Yes.
do that series on LinkedIn?
Yes, I started it in May. You were my first guest, May
Mm-hmm.
of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been, I guess, a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. And yeah, I have somebody tomorrow that's coming in, and I'm finding new people every day. And it's a joy for me to do this. It fills my heart because I wish people did that for me. Like you said,
Right.
like it wasn't my experience, but I'm glad that I get to give
Model
other
it.
people a different experience. Yeah, yeah, and it really for it's not only for the people themselves, the person that I'm interviewing who gets to share their story, is for the people that are watching and are saying, "Wow, like we do everything and we're great and we're amazing and we're trailblazers and." If we don't see something we created and we're not afraid to step up and we're going to use our voice. And I feel like so it's serving two purposes. It's, giving that person their flowers, but it's also telling other people this could be you.
Mm-hmm.
So keep working hard and keep showing up.
And I know you have a page, right, where people can access all those past recordings, because otherwise
Yep.
it's probably hard to like look through your LinkedIn and find them.
Yep.
Do you know where people can find that?
Yeah, so it's on my website. My website is boldySpeakingLLC.com. And then I have on my menu, there's like LinkedIn Live.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 3 LinkedIn Live shows. So it's under there. So there's Latinas Front and Center, which is about Latinas. There's Let's Talk to Impact, which is for ERG leaders. And then I just started one called Authors Unplugged, and I'm interviewing other authors. And that's been really fun. I need to bring you on that show, Gigi.
How
So
fun. Yeah, I
yeah,
love
I'm
that.
loving it. It's really, really fun. I just had a conversation yesterday with this amazing Latina author, and she's like a poet also. So we have fun talking about it, and it's taken a lot of. I had Mita Malik come in talk about the devil emails at midnight, and that was really fun. And anyway, it's fun because I have a lot of author friends now, so I'm
Yeah,
getting to shine a light on them too. So and have fun conversations.
I love that. And that's all on your website under the LinkedIn Live tab.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so make sure you check it out if you're listening. And what are some things that you would have wanted to say back in your corporate days but couldn't? And now that you work for yourself, how do you express that truth through your work or your content or your writing?
Yeah. Well, I think about like I hated that sometimes the only safe space I had at work was with my ERG.
Yeah.
And that was something that like I wish more people knew and understood that I'm not the only one with that reality.
Mm-hmm.
And people I don't think would, I don't think they would validate that if I shared that with them. So that was something that I wanted to say, but I just felt like people wouldn't understand. I hated that, it bothered me a lot that there would be women that were all about gender equality, but when we introduced the concept or the notion of intersectionality and said, "Yeah, you think it's hard for you? Imagine being a woman of color," and it was like, "No, that we don't know," that they poo-pooed that, and they were like, "Yeah, yeah, we don't know what you're talking about. Like that's not a
Mm-hmm.
thing." And it's like, "Oh yeah, it is a thing."
Mm-hmm.
That bothered me. That was something that, I always wanted to speak up about that because, and I did oftentimes speak up about it. And like one time, I was the intersectional chair for a women's ERG because of that, because I spoke out and then I got that position. And they're like, okay, you connect us to the other ERG so we can be including these intersectional identities. And I'm like, great, let's do it. But like, that was something like I feel like I forced myself into, and I feel like not enough people recognize that that could and should be a thing. And I think the other one that, the bro culture, it was just I hated that that was the norm, and that often meant for me that I felt like I didn't belong. Like when people were talking about football and I don't know, all these other
Fantasy
like
team or all this.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, the fantasy teams. That was a big one.
Yeah.
It's just like I don't know what you're talking about, and I shouldn't have to. And why are we talking about this? Like, you don't see me bringing my stuff in, and
Yeah.
if I did, you would definitely feel like, what are we talking about? The
Yeah.
asado? Like, why are we talking about that? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, why are we talking about your damn football fantasy thing? I don't want to talk about that either. So, yeah, those were things that I wish I could have said, but I think how like what my current reality is we already talked about the book, and I wrote the book so that other women like us, like you and me, could feel more validated, and also so they can feel like they can show up fully, because that's I think the key part is like the fully part is like have permission to fully show up as yourself and not feel like you have to hide or yeah, just keep anything that represents the totality of you like under wrap, like just be yourself. And I think to me we are done, and what I hope that I communicate a lot through my work is that we are done being waited or waiting to be invited in. Like we're done with that, like, ay, calladita, we're gonna wait here in a corner and you're gonna tap me on the shoulder and be like, come on in, you can be part of the cool group or whatever.
Hmm.
Like we are creating our own spaces. I'm the director of programs for Lean and Latinas. I'm part of a lot of other Latinx serving organizations and women serving organizations. And it's because I I'm like, okay, that's fine. You don't want me in there. I'm going to create my own space, and I'm going to be lifting other people up in the process. And we're going to just, have spaces where we feel safe and where we can show up fully. And you talked already about Latinas front and center, and that's a very, very public way that I am trying to invite the younger generation, the future generation of leaders, to know that one is we're here. Like there are people paving the way. So like we're paving the way. We have your back. Like we're gonna show up for you. We're here. We're like saying the things that maybe you can't say right now or you can't say yet, but we're saying it on your behalf.
Hmm.
And in the with the hope and the expectation that they're going to get to more senior levels, more senior roles than maybe we did, and they're going to get to control more of what that culture ends up looking like. And so that's a big part of my work right now is planting the seed of hope for those future leaders so that they can show up in whatever way they want, and they can create cultures that truly reflect, the people that work at the companies where they work, or, if what it depends, I guess it depends what they're doing. But I guess I'm thinking more like corporate leaders. And so corporate leaders, I want them to be contributors to developing a culture of belonging, because I think
Yeah.
that that's their place. That's a place where they can really contribute and add value.
That's so beautiful. It reminds me of that saying, and I'm totally gonna chop it up, but like something about like planting seeds for like trees that you won't see grow, you know? You know?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. I'm honest about that in the book. In my lifetime, I don't really think, quote unquote,
Right.
the system will be fixed. But
Progress will be
we're
made.
gonna make a dent. We're gonna make a dent. We're gonna
Yes.
do what we can, and we're gonna plant those seeds so that future generations can do what they need to do
I love
and
that.
continue to chip away at it. Yeah.
I love that. And how did leaving corporate give you your voice back? And as somebody who's also a content creator online, I also wanted to ask you. Oh, sorry, that's the next question. So let's go back to the first question. How did leaving corporate give you your voice back?
Yeah, I would say in the beginning, if I'm honest, nothing changed because, girl, 25 years of brainwashing, takes a long time. I didn't even know
Yes.
that I could say things. Like I
Yep.
was still like policing myself because I was so used to it. So I'm like, oh no, the girl, don't say that.
Yeah.
That's gonna offend people or that's gonna make people feel a certain type of way. So I was still really worried about saying the wrong thing or offending people. early on. And then I'll be honest, I did not embrace it fully until I saw some other ex corporate people doing it. And I was like, oh, we could do that? Espérate. All right, now I'm gonna say stuff. So and again, that's the beauty and the magic of representing and doing something and knowing that well, maybe not knowing that other people are watching, but you should know that other people are watching. I was watching other people and I said, oh, I could do that. And there's not going to be ramifications and consequences. Like who's gonna fire me? I was like, okay, I could do this. So I think that was the green light that I needed to show up in a way that felt so liberating for me and so authentic to me. And I was like, now I'm going to I think I'm all the way on the other side now where I know that I need to say things that corporate folks can't say. So I say them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to give you an example if we have time. Do we have time
Sure.
for
Yeah.
another story?
Yep.
I was asked to speak at a company for Hispanic Heritage Month. And the ERG leader said, don't say too much Hispanic or Latinx. Like, don't, because we want to make sure everybody feels comfortable. And I thought that was such an interesting request, and I feel like I didn't know like where it came from, but I had an idea of where it came from. And I said, they're asking me that, but they also know that my company is called Boldly Speaking. They know that my book is called Calladita No More. And you're like trying to silence me and tell me not to say something that needs, like that I think is perfectly okay to say. So I said, yeah, no, that's a no for me. And I just said what I felt needed to be said in that moment. I don't think that I said anything like objectionable or like offensive, but I was honest. And I said, this is not only my experience, this is our experience. And, I made it about me so that, like no one kind of other employees wouldn't like get into trouble. So I'm like, this is my experience, but probably this is the experience of other people on your team, FYI.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is my responsibility to say those things that maybe they can't say or they're
Mm-hmm.
worried about saying and like
Mm-hmm.
they might quote unquote get in trouble for saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say it. And I think, that's my responsibility and I own it.
Yeah, or like even by you saying things like that in those settings, then it gives people, I don't want to say an excuse, but an entryway into having maybe that needed discussion with their superior or whoever they report to of like, hey, this presenter mentioned this, and actually I wanted to talk about that because I felt similar, right?
1,000%.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, yeah, that's what I gotta do. If
Mm-hmm.
I gotta look at my role and their role is to hire someone like me, and my role is to say the thing so that they can feel a little bit more comfortable, like it's quote unquote normalized. And it's like, okay, well, Hadi said it, so maybe it's okay for me to bring up too. And yeah, I hope that it does that. I hope that it sparks conversation, curiosity, and that people like are like, well, I wonder if people on my team feel that way. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, why don't you ask about it and get curious? I think that's a good thing.
And Hadi, back to your question about how, at first it was hard to be open, like in public, after 25 years of, like you said,
Of
corporate
indoctrination.
brainwashing. Yeah. I remember feeling that too, right? So when I started creating content, it wasn't on LinkedIn, it was on TikTok, because that's where I felt safe. Then I could just be raw and myself and unfiltered, unedited. Then I had to make my way to Instagram. I didn't want to. I just saw that I needed to for business purposes. And then on LinkedIn, I didn't start doing it until I got into an accelerator program with LinkedIn. And that forced me to do it. But before that, I was very intimidated too, because again, LinkedIn had only been a place where I shared, oh, I got a new job at this company, or oh, I was promoted to this role.
Exactly.
It wasn't a place where I shared my opinions, um, really like anything else besides just what's going on in the ladder. So, and I've met other creators that I'm like, your content, because they're career creators. I'm like, your content would do really great on LinkedIn, but they're still kind of shy and they have not dipped their toe in LinkedIn. What words of advice would you give to somebody who knows that maybe 2026 is a year to be on LinkedIn, but they still haven't done it?
I think it's a great space. I haven't really felt a lot, like I haven't gotten a lot of haters. And maybe that speaks to how there's still much more that I could and should be saying.
Mm-hmm.
I know some content creators that really, really, really just they go at it, and I love them and respect them. We all have our place in our
Mhm.
lane, so to speak. But I will say that, people are always watching. That's the takeaway that I take from everything that I do, because I always get the feedback. Like, I even had a customer once. So I was writing about like DEI stuff before I was the head of equality at a major tech company. I was writing about it because I was always involved in ERGs and I love the topic. And I remember this one customer, white male, who I talked only about customer things with him. I had like my laundry list of things. We talk about like vacation, how was your weekend? What did you eat, for Thanksgiving, like the safe conversations. And out of nowhere, as we were waiting for other people to join the call, he's like, "Hey, I follow you on LinkedIn and I love your content around DEI." And I think he even said something like, "I've been learning a lot." And I was like,
Really?
wow, I was
Yeah.
blown away. And I was like, that's the thing. You don't know who's watching. You don't
Yeah.
know who you're inspiring, who you're educating, who you're challenging, you just don't
Because not
know. And so,
everybody engages, not everybody comments, not everybody
correct,
likes, and then there's a lot of
correct.
lurkers. My friend
Yes.
came up with that term,
Yeah.
but again, they're still watching, they're still learning. So,
Yes.
yeah, my
That's right.
husband's one of those people who, yeah, he's just like, what are people up to? But he never comments or posts, and it's not because he's trying to hide or anything, but it's just he has
Yeah.
nothing to add, so he's just taking in the information and
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. And maybe it wasn't safe for this guy to say anything, but he said it to me.
yeah,
And I cannot tell you, like, I was beaming because I was like, wow, like, that that was not necessarily my target audience, but
yeah,
I was like thrilled that my content had reached them in some way and had touched them in some way, so much so that he felt like he had to tell me something, because he definitely didn't have to say anything. You know what
yeah.
I mean? But like, it was very cool that he said something. And yeah. So anyway, I think that's what I would encourage people who are thinking about. It's just like, you don't know who's watching. And our voices matter, and if you have a unique point of view on anything, like, hey, that's welcome, because we're talking about a lot of things on LinkedIn, and unique and different perspectives are always welcome. And sometimes just brave people to say the thing that needs to be said. Like, we some of us might not be talking about a thing that's very hard. Like, I know that I try to keep my opinions and my point of views related to my brand, and I use other spaces to talk about politics, or I use other spaces to talk
Right,
about like what I'm eating this weekend and like this great Thanksgiving meal that I had. I might not talk about it on LinkedIn. I have my spaces, dedicated spaces for different things.
right.
But brave voices are always welcome in spaces, and I would say LinkedIn can always use another brave voice.
Yes, and I would love to add that LinkedIn will, there's a lot of great features, but sometimes, like on Instagram or TikTok, right, the algorithm knows you pretty well. So you tend to just be in an echo chamber with your people, with your values, which is awesome, I think. But with LinkedIn, right, because if you comment or share, then it shows to other people's network, right? So somebody that's connected to them, it shows up on their feed. So it wouldn't be your typical audience. So maybe that is how an ally could come across your content. So you can reach
Yep.
more people that way for sure. And then the other thing that I always like to highlight is that the trolls on LinkedIn are like nothing compared to, like,
Yeah, because people not trying to get fired because they know they will get blown
exactly.
up. Yeah, so I
Exactly.
agree with you that it's a little bit of a safer environment for that reason.
Yes.
And that's good, because we already have enough to deal with in life to deal with trolls on top of that. So it's like, create your content. If somebody doesn't like it, you don't have to look at it. I've had a couple of people, one or two people be like, I noticed that you create all this content exclusively for Latinas and women of color. How come you don't talk about men? And I'm like, because I don't want to. I could talk about whoever I want. I could direct my comments and
Yeah.
my
You're welcome to
content
create your
to
own
whoever I
page where
want.
you
Create
talk
your
about
own damn
whatever you want.
content.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good luck. Que te vaya bien. I
Yeah.
mean, I have no responsibility to do that. And
Yeah.
anyway, but he also, like, it was a troll like comment, but it was also like not, like you said, I know where
Nothing
you
compared
work.
to, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like you can't go nuts on it. So, and I appreciate that. So it was, I said what I said and he said what he said and we moved on.
Yeah. Usually the only people that do go off like that are people that usually retired. It says retired on their profile. But yeah, otherwise they just have to bite their tongue because, like you
Yeah.
said, like it shows where they work and they're
Yep.
representing their workplace. So people have to be polite in a certain way, or
Yeah, more
censored, or
respectful.
more respectful, yeah, of what others are sharing.
Yep.
So as you talk about sharing freely on LinkedIn, on your other social channels, there's a lot of freedom in doing that, but there can also be fear because, again, you're totally unfiltered to talk about what you want to talk about. Have you ever said something that maybe got twisted out of context, where you face backlash, or maybe you second guess whether posting it, and then you actually post it and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I did it because people love this? And how do you navigate that, about like what is too much and what is something that is just better for like me to say to my close friends and not something I should be posting on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's a great question. I try not to second guess myself too much. I feel like I've been creating on LinkedIn long enough that I kind of organically and, naturally know kind
People
of
know your brand for
what is good
sure.
content. Yeah, what is
Yeah.
good content to put there, what makes sense, what is like a little bit like what does this have to do with the moon? Um, I will say that I have a general rule for myself, and maybe other content creators do too. And it's that I usually do not post about something that I'm going through in the moment that I'm going through it. So if it's like a really, let's say I'm, when I was laid off and I like wanted to cry every night, or maybe I was crying every night, or I just felt so discouraged and I was like completely depleted and just really didn't have a good level of self esteem. And I didn't write about it in the moment in that raw of a detail. I didn't give that much information. I might have said something like, "Hey, it's been a hard week, but I'm celebrating small wins," and just kind of keep it like quote unquote positive.
Hmm.
But I try to talk about those moments after. So after I've gone through them and I've
After the
processed
storm.
them,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I say, this, you know what? This was, people probably are going through this. This is
Yeah.
probably somebody else's reality. I need to share this. This is helpful. I think this would be helpful content to share so that people understand you're not the only one going through it. I have been through it too. Here's how I handled it. Here's what I learned from it. Here's what I decided to do as a result of it. So I always do it kind of looking back, because too raw, I just feel like I might, I know myself and I'm like, it's not going to be a good look. It's not aligned with my brand. It's not
Yeah.
aligned with how I want to show up. So I do it after. And I think that's helpful because I am like, I was a top mentoring and coaching voice. And that's kind of how I look at the world. Like, it's like, what did I learn from that? And what can you take from that experience that I went through? And so that's usually the context of how that content shows up.
I want to add, I my content used to be money content, career content, first gen, navigating things for the first time content. And I remember on TikTok, I always felt safe just talking about random stuff, opinions. But the first time that I shared on LinkedIn, sorry, not on LinkedIn, not Instagram stories, because Instagram stories is also kind of pretty unfiltered and on the go, and they erase after 24 hours, right?
Temporary, yeah.
Yes, yes. But I remember posting something in the feed, right, which is, it stays there unless you delete it, um, about being estranged from my mom. It was because I was quoted in an article. I think it was by Pop Sugar or Refinery 29, one of those two, and they were interviewing Latinas about this like very taboo, unspoken topic about how a lot of Latina mothers are placed on a pedestal and they can do no wrong, but actually some of us unfortunately get stuck with moms who are emotionally immature, narcissistic, toxic, and we're better off just kind of creating space. I had no problem sharing the article, my voice to the article, but when I'm like, oh, do I post this to my people on Instagram who again are used to just knowing me for money and career content, I was so I second guessed myself. And I remember I posted it on a Friday because I'm like, oh, that's when people are like least on the phone because they're ready for the weekend. And I
And
posted
you
it.
had a gazillion comments.
Well, look, not only did I post it on a Friday, I posted it literally right before I turned on airplane mode because I was on a flight. So I'm like, if there are any comments, I don't want to see them right now. And sure enough, when I landed, it was blown up. And that's one of those times where I'm glad that I put myself out there, that I showed a little bit more of a personal side of me, because other people were like, dang, look at her. I thought she was a badass and she had it all figured out. But yet, here in her personal life, she had this
Yeah.
very difficult thing that I'm also dealing with. So
Yep.
I can have a fragmented relationship with my mom, but still be kicking ass. And
Exactly.
so I think it's important every now and there to kind of like peel the curtain and show people a glimpse of what's going on, because you're not just like this like corporate robot, like you're a person that's navigating real things. So
Yeah,
but
I think imperfections, if you want to call them that, or just like things that make us real and human. I think people, that's very relatable. You know, it's just like, oh, yeah. And again, to the point of everyone's always watching, and it's like they've seen you as this like, you know, expert and someone who like really knows her stuff. And it's like, but, you know, like you said, behind the curtain, maybe there's something that you
yeah,
can really relate to, that kind of ties us together in a special way. And I think that's I think that makes a big difference, and to the degree that it's real. Like
yeah,
I for example on Substack shared that only one person came to an author event that I had,
I've
and I
been there.
also, I didn't do it like for anything. I just said, you know, only one person came. That was a little bit
They got a
difficult, but
VIP
like,
experience.
but yeah, we created a circle and we had a conversation. We were there the whole time. I signed her book, sent her on her way, and I'm not mad about it. I'm just going to use it as an opportunity for learning and growth, and not, you know, not take for granted that people are going to show up. And I wrote it like in September because that's when it happened, and it wasn't until October that it blew up. I ended up I went like mini viral for me anyway, like over 1,000 likes on that thing. And everyone was like, don't worry, like other people that I
Yeah,
read about fulano de tal, you know, they were naming Mark Twain and all these other like famous people, probably not Mark Twain, but like other famous writers who had a similar situation. And they're like, you're going to get a room full of people, you're going to be in a place where like it's going to be standing room only, just stay with it. And you know, that was really nice. And
yeah,
so yeah, I also, it was like, that was embarrassing, a
yeah.
little bit embarrassing, but it happened. And my goal is to be transparent about my author journey, because there's good, there's bad, there's ugly. And
Yeah.
if I'm going
High
to keep it
highs and
real,
low
you're going to,
lows.
yeah, you're going to hear about it. So yeah, I try to keep it real.
Thank you. And Hady, as we get close to the end of the interview, I want to ask you two more quick questions.
Okay.
Now that you work for yourself, that you're outside of these corporate walls, what does success look like for you now?
Freedom, baby, liberation. I feel like the whatever, the handcuffs, they're off and I am
Yes.
free. And so I can speak the truth. I can be honest about our experiences, and I talk about us and our, because that's what I'm doing. It's not just Hady's. It's Hady as a representation of someone who's a Latina and a woman of color. So I feel
Yes.
like these are our experiences, and I also want to encourage, like I said, hope is a very important part of my brand and how I want to show up. And I want to encourage people that look like us to maybe consider showing up differently so they can have different outcomes. So it's not just like all this stuff happens to us, but it's like, what can we do about it? So I want to make sure that I'm acknowledging both things, that it's like, yes, this sucks. And here's some things, ways that we're going to manage it so we can still get to where we need to go.
Mhm.
And I am really focused on, like, yes, stepping into our power, knowing that we don't need permission to step into our power. Like, it's
Mhm.
already ours, it's already there, and we just need to claim it. So that's really where I'm at. And yeah, and I think that writing the book played a really big role in like that transition for me. Like that,
For
I think, has
sure.
been what really like brought me to the other side, so to speak, because the
Mhm.
book gave me permission to say what I needed to say.
Yeah.
And once I got the permission, I was like, yo, we all have this, you know, we all like have this, like we can all do this. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
the only one. We can all do this, even if you don't write a book, but if you do a podcast or you just post content, like you should be owning it as well. So
Mhm.
I think the book writing process definitely made me more brave and is encouraging me to help other people to be brave too.
I love that. Yeah, it's definitely a transformative journey for sure. And then lastly, Hady, what are you excited about as we come up on this new year? Any fun projects you can share? Any updates? Just as we're,
Uh,
because this interview will go
yeah.
live either this week or next week.
Amazing. So I do have a very big announcement to share, and that's that
Ooh,
I'm going to be creating a community for Calladita No More readers and anybody else who wants to join us. But it's really meant to be a safe space for us. I know how important and valuable safe spaces can be for our
yes.
community.
Mhm.
And it's a place where we can show up and just be ourselves and ask for help and lift each other up and get that support that I know is so important that maybe we don't get in our workplaces or from our managers or our peers or our
Yeah.
colleagues.
Some
We're going to
companies
get
don't
it
even
from each
have
other.
ERGs, girl, so they have nowhere to go for these
That's right.
conversations. Yeah.
That's right. And I think it is so important. Like, I know how much those spaces meant to me, those safe
Mhm.
spaces.
Mhm.
And I want to offer other people the same opportunity. And yeah, and I'm excited about it. I feel like this is my season of giving. This is my season of being, giving back and really showing up for the community. And I want it to have a ripple effect. So I hope that as I build community and we support each other and we see each other and we celebrate each other, that they can in turn do that for the people in their lives and in their communities and in their spaces and at their workplaces who need the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for your time, Hadi. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom, for uplifting others along the way, for being a champion for Latina voices. Where can people find you? Where can people work with you? Let us know your website, your socials, and what offerings you have to support people.
Okay. So I'll start off with the offerings. I do work as a ERG advisor for companies that need support in either launching, relaunching, or just, breathing new life into their ERG programming. So that's at the corporate level. But then I work one-on-one. I do coaching. So I have power sessions. I do accountability sessions. I do it all for future leaders. So anyone who feels underestimated and underrecognized in any way, those are the clients that I want to work with the most. So I want to give back to people that kind of are experiencing a lot of the things that I experience. I want to give back to them. And then, like I said, next year, expect to see a community where it's going to be a little bit different than one-on-one coaching. It's going to be more us supporting each other and us, building a network of encouragement, support, and connection. So those are the offerings. And then I'm always down to talk about Calladita No More. So if people want to buy the book, bring me in for a book club, bring me in to talk about the learnings. I think there's a lot of people that can take something away from the book. It doesn't have to just be a woman and a person of color. It can be almost anybody, really. And my journey so far, as I've been talking in a lot of corporate spaces, has demonstrated to me that the message resonates with almost everyone. So just want to put that out there as well. But my website is bodyspeakingllc.com or calladitanomore.com. If you want to like just dive right into the book, you can go straight there. And I'm on LinkedIn. Hady Mendez is my name, and I'm one of the few, so you'll definitely find me. I am also on Instagram under Calladita No More Book, and that's a new Instagram. I used to have a Hady on the web, and she took her down, and then I brought another one up for the book, and I've been having a lot of fun creating content for the book now. And then I'm also on Substack, where that's probably where I'm like just like saying whatever I gotta say. There's
I need to
no
join your
filters.
Substack, girl. Yeah.
Yeah, and my Substack, very very appropriately enough, is called Hady Unfiltered Sin Pelos en la
Mm-hmm.
Lengua, and that's I think that sounds right. That sounds about right for. And I feel like I name things like that, boldly speaking, Calladita No More, Hady Unfiltered. It's all because that's how I want to be. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that I'm like perfectly, like just saying all the things I want to say, but I'm challenging myself to be brave. And I'm also challenging other people to be brave too. But I give myself these aspirational titles and names because that's where I want to be. That's
Well,
the
letting
space that I
people
want to
know
be
what
in.
they're signing up for, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And what's the best way to get in touch with you? So if people do want to reach out to either work with you for their ERG or if they want to get in touch with you for a book club, is it through your website? Is there a
I would say
contact
LinkedIn.
form?
LinkedIn or Instagram is perfect wherever you find yourself. Yeah. And then I also have like a contact me form, and I do free exploratory sessions. If you're like, I'm not sure, but I think I kind of want to work with you, but I'm not sure how,
Yeah,
we can
to
do
make
an
sure you're a fit.
exploratory call. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll make sure to
Thank you.
include all that information in the show notes. Thank you again, Hadi, for your time. To the listeners, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it on Instagram stories and tag me on at Gigi, the first gen mentor, or please leave me a review to help others discover this podcast. Thanks for listening and hasta la próxima.
Ciao.